As I take this breath, I'm so filled with gratitude. I'm so filled with everything that happens in a given moment, in a given instant. As I look around and I see all of the different people who are playing different roles in this situation called church. And I know that it takes us all. Like, this is what we do. And that we come together and we sing and we cry and we laugh and we ask, what the heck is going on? Because if you can't do that here, then what good is our spiritual teaching and our spiritual principle and our spiritual practice? And if you believe, as I believe, that we're empowered by the questions we ask, what's going on ain't a bad question. In fact, it's a really good one. And this is where that I honor the energy of my collaborators, Amy and Jesse, as we looked at the song and we put it in and we put it out and we changed some words and then we changed them back. But the brilliance of the divine idea of this particular song for this particular talk about turning around. And the song talks about, that climb, that long climb. Now, in the song for 25 years, some of us, it's been a lot longer than 25 years that we've been looking for something, that we've been seeking for something. And for many of us, we have taken pride in being a seeker. Haven't you said that before? Well, I'm a spiritual seeker. I know I've said that. And I've owned it and I've loved it. And it's carried me along on my journey to a particular point where the idea then could drop in. What if I could be found? What if I'm found? What if there is actually nothing more to seek or search for? What if I can take that breath in this holy instant and know that this moment is sufficient unto itself? And that everything that is needed to know about life, about the conversations that we have in life, about our questions, that if we would just pause for a moment and have the consideration of being found, that right where we are, the ground upon which we stand is holy, not because of something outside of ourselves, but because we stand upon it as holy people, as holy beings. Because humanity wants to carve itself out and think itself special, but look around at the holiness of this campus, of the beauty, of the way that it expresses, of the bobcats and the bears and the geckos, the ground upon which they occupy is holy as well. Why is that? Because it's all holy. It's all holy. Everything is holy now because everything is whole now because God created in its image and likeness. Separation? No. Otherness? Mm-mm. One. Unity. Wholeness now. And so this concept of what we're studying last week and this week, the work of Byron Katie, who, by the way, I consider to be a living, breathing, enlightened being right here, right now. And that the work that she brings forth is a tool that we can use to discover how to be fearless in unity and limitless in life. We didn't say that together today, did we yet? So what do we say usually every Sunday? We say, we are fearless in unity and limitless in life. And I have felt over time this, is it responsible to throw out such a statement and to speak it every day and not ever unpack it? But the beauty of this walk that we are on together is you don't need me to unpack it for you. That there is that divine within you in the sanctuary of your own soul that you can contemplate this for yourself. And that the truth within you will inform you of what that means in your life. But sometimes it's nice to have a teacher. And Byron Katie is a brilliant teacher of how to question what's going on. What the heck's going on in our lives? And so this practice that we began last week, that if you're on our email list, you got a little study guide. We have a study guide afterwards that you can pick up. I'm just going to touch upon a couple of things, but it is completely aligned with the unity first principle that God is the only activity that is going on in my life and in all of creation, and God is good. And so when we say that as our affirmation, as the way that we walk through life, we don't just say it here. We say it everywhere we go. And at Agape, the chant was, God is good. And the audience would say, all the time, God is good. All the time. God is good all the time. Love is good all the time, because I believe that God and love are synonymous. God carries with it a whole bunch of religiosity that I'm not that interested in. But what I am interested in is the expression of love. And how do we walk through our lives seeing beyond the illusion and the appearances that are going to try to convince us that there is another power opposing good? How are we going to do that? And how we're going to do that is we are going to embrace it all. We're going to question what's going on. And so we question what's going on in our lives every time we feel some angst, every time we feel what I call a little snag. Something just kind of snags at my consciousness, tugs at my heart. The shadow, perhaps, comes across my consciousness. Or I have a feeling tone of something being off. How perfect is that? Do you realize that your body, that your emotions, that your feelings are for you? Not against you, they're for you. I know some of us, like to gnash our teeth and struggle against them. But if we would embrace them, guess what? They'd be great informers for us. They'd help us learn a couple things. They are our inherent guidance system in this experience. And so when we feel something, we don't push it away. We don't just lay a happy affirmation upon it. We can, and in time it might infiltrate. But we're at a place where we've evolved enough where we can embrace and look at, all right, what's going on here? I don't feel so good about this. I feel angry. I feel hurt. I feel lost. I feel hopeless. Well, that's not very spiritual. Take a breath, think again. Imagine that you are standing in about 3-4 feet of water, depending on how tall you are. Like, let's just say, for me, it's about 2 feet. But, it's like, let's say it's about waist high. Let's just say that. And imagine yourself standing there. And imagine that there's this big beach ball, the colorful ones. And you have a feeling, and it's like you're taking that, and it happens over time. Maybe the first time you had it was when you were a little girl or a little boy. And you thought, you know what? That might disappoint my parents or the teacher or my friends if they knew I felt that way. So I'm gonna pretend like it doesn't exist. And over time, we keep pushing that beach ball down underneath the water, and we put a big old smile on our face. I look good, don't I? I can do all kinds of things while I hold this beach ball down here, right? But guess what happens? You get off balance a little bit, maybe you're tired, you're off your game a little bit. What happens? That beach ball comes out, and it goes in a direction you had no idea it was going to go, and it bops somebody right in the face. Man, you didn't mean it. So rather than trying to push these feelings aside, we bring them out and we look at them. Byron Katie talks about welcoming and embracing the feelings. She would say, her worksheet is judge your neighbor worksheet. It's not don't judge your neighbor worksheet. It's like get it all out on paper, judge your neighbor till the cows come home worksheet. Get it all out. Now, why do you think she would do that? Because we got all those beach balls underneath, right? And what we know about life, what we know about spiritual principle, just like the feeling tones that we have are for us and not against us, that they are tools for our awakening. Gosh darn it, here's another one. We live in a reflective universe. There is nothing going on out there. This is why we can stop seeking and decide to be found. The answer's not out there. And much to our chagrin, neither is the problem. Now, I'm not saying you're the problem or we're the problem. What I am saying is that there's a shadow. There's a mistruth, a misperception that has you believing you are the problem. That's the lie. Byron Katie would ask, other than what you're thinking, other than what you're believing, how you doing? That it's our attachment to our thoughts and beliefs that cause suffering. That suffering is not inherent, and catch this, my friends, it's not required. In fact, it's counterproductive to salvation. I love our religions. They are a valid pathway, depending on where you're at, depending on what trailhead you take. But at some point, they all rise and merge, and they rise above the concept that suffering brings you home in any way, or that God would require it of you. Take a breath here with me. So we're embracing, we're accepting, we're allowing what is, and we're going to look at it. And when we look at it, we're going to remember that it's reflecting ourselves, our beliefs, and it's rich with information that guides us and points us in the direction of where our own healing is. Our healing is not out there. So last week we talked about there's 3 kinds of business: God's business, your business, my business. Which business are we staying in? Our own. We're staying in my business. We stay home. We're bringing it all home to self. And as we do so, we get, as our reading said, in the present now moment, we can release the thoughts of the past, the ancient thoughts of the past, and the thoughts of the future. And we abide right here, right now. And we look at what is here. And we say, what's going on? Who am I judging? What am I judging? How do I feel about it? What am I angry about? And we look at it and we get it all out. And we do that because, like, biblically, how this is spoken, biblically, it's like I take the log out of my own eye before I reach across to take the speck out of your eye. I work at home first, here first. And I let it all come to the surface. It can't hurt you. An unexamined thought can. An examined thought will set you free. An examined belief will set you free. An unexamined one will keep you in chains and bondage. So spiritual awakening is messy sometimes, and everybody is doing the very best they can in every moment. And tap your shoulder here and say, including me. I'm doing the very best I can in each and every moment. And now you can look around and say, just like you. Then we can go home and we can get a judge your neighbor and we can judge it all. And then we'll look at it. And what we're going to do when we look at it is we're going to ask 4 simple questions. The first one is it true? Is what I'm thinking or believing true? Is what I'm thinking or believing about you true? Are the things that I think you ought to be doing, is that true? And I sometimes answer, hell yeah, it is true. Sure is. They actually ought to be doing what I think they ought to be doing because it's right and it's in integrity. Okay, people have heard me say that. Stop laughing. Ask the question again. Can I absolutely know that it's true? How do I know what somebody else ought to do? Whose business am I in then? Yeah. How do I know what should be going on the other side of the world? How do I really know? I don't. If I believe that God is good all the time, would God not be appearing in perfect ways for each and every person to be receiving the exact lessons that they are here to receive? This is a walk of faith and trust, and it's counterintuitive to how we have been raised and how we are conditioned in our society. And it's uncomfortable. That's okay. It won't kill you. It will actually set us free. Now, you might answer the second time you ask if it's true. You might say, yes. That's okay. Keep going. The next question is very telling. How do I feel when I believe it to be true? How do I feel when I think you ought to be doing something else other than what you're doing, or being something else other than what you're being? I feel self-righteous. And guess what? When you don't do what I think you ought to do for a minute, for a year, for 5 years, for 10 years, I've been pushing that down, right? I don't feel so good. Our relationship probably suffers because you know somewhere I'm judging you and I'm not accepting you just as you are. I'm not allowing you to find your own way. So how do you feel? Why would you continue to keep suffering, self-imposed, to be right? by your judgment. And then the fourth question is, who would I be without that thought? Can you let it go? I'm having the vision of a couple weeks ago, Reverend Greg with the monkeys putting their hand in the thing, drop the banana. Are you willing to let it go? Are you willing to drop that banana? Are you willing to let it go? Who would I be without that thought? Who would I be and how could I show up without that thought? I might be able to show up for you and not against you. Take a breath here. The song sung talks about a revolution. I wrote it down. I'm trying to get up that great big hill and get out of my head everything I'm feeling and thinking, and I'm feeling peculiar. Anybody ever feel peculiar? What's going on? And I try, and I pray, and I try, and I pray. And I try and I pray for a resolution and a revolution. When we began the year, I said, happy, what do we do at the beginning of the year? We make up resolutions, right? And we talked about it being a revolution. And what's a revolution? What's the title of today's talk? Turn around. And I think I've done this before up here. Only once, because I get dizzy if I do it too much. Turn around. In any moment, we can turn around. In any moment, we can turn around. What we're projecting out, we can begin to ask of ourselves. When have I been unloving? When have I betrayed somebody? When have I been angry? We've been everywhere and every when, my beloveds. There, but for the grace of God, go I. Reflective universe. You spot it, you got it. Somebody said, Lois, somebody said something about me being sweet. And I'm like, well, you're sweet too. And I'm like, you spot it, you got it, but it works both ways. If we're perceiving something in another, the healing is within us. And so as we begin to wind this conversation down, I want to share a couple quotes that I think are powerful. It's Charles Fillmore. I'm going out of order. Charles Fillmore says, self-observation is the prelude to Christ consciousness. Self-observation is the prelude. It must happen before we can return home to the nature in which we were created, which is one with our Creator. God and I are one. That's that Christ consciousness. We must observe. The whole world is projected. The world is the mirror image of our mind. And the bottom line, according to Byron Katie, if our mind is closed, our heart is closed. If the mind is open, the heart is open. So if you want to open your heart, question your very own thinking. This is quintessential unity teaching. Change your thinking, change your life. But more deeply, change your belief that's generating the thoughts. To change your life, to heal yourself. And as we do so, we heal all of those around us. We know that that's the essence of prayer. Studies show that our positive thoughts and our prayers impacts living things. Is your friend, your spouse, your coworker not a living thing? That as we regard all with this love and see from a different perspective, everything changes. As long as we think the cause of our problems out there, as long as you think anyone or anything else is responsible for our suffering, the situation is hopeless. We are on a pathway of awakening, and it begins within ourselves. It begins right here. Take a breath with me. So know that suffering is optional. That as we begin to clear the cloudedness of our perception, we see that we're in paradise now. Wherever we walk, there we are. And the ground is holy. And we can set ourselves and everyone else free. When our eye becomes cleared, it can become single. And the eye stayed upon thee, our whole body shall be filled with light.